There are a lot of misconceptions out there in this world about parenting, and one of them is the myth of the calm parent. How many of you have seen that all over books and social media that somehow the goal in parenting is to perfectly be calm and never get mad or never raise your voice, never be frustrated, and you're always, no matter how heated the situation gets, you're never escalated or dysregulated. Well, Sarah and I want to take this podcast to just blow up that myth, because that is not going to happen, and that is actually not healthy for your kids. I mean, really, our kids need to see us in all types of different states. It's really not about being calm or not being calm. We want to present to you a different way of viewing success as a parent that really speaks to the heart of what we're doing at Art of Raising Humans. And today, by the end of this podcast, you are going to have a different vision, hopefully, of what it looks like for you to succeed as a wonderful mom and dad of the beautiful kids you have. So if you haven't already, please take time to rate, review, and comment. We'd love to hear about your journey, even about you trying to be a different type of parent, but not buying into this myth of the calm parent. We'd love to hear about how that's going for you. And if you're ever needing any help with your parenting and you are interested in parent coaching, reach out to me at Kyle@artofraisinghumans.com. I would love to connect with you and talk about how we could help you on your journey to really becoming the parents that you want to be. So sit back and enjoy this episode of we break down the myth of the calm parent.
Welcome to the Art of Raising Humans.
The Art of Raising Humans is a podcast designed to support, equip, and encourage parents on how to create long-lasting, deeply connected relationships with their kids that's free from fear and shame. Come join us on the journey. Hello, and welcome to the Art of Raising Humans. I'm Kyle.
Hi there, I'm Sarah.
And Sarah, I think lots of times in this culture where we're trying to parent differently, we're trying to be more intentional. We're trying to do better maybe than what our parents have done, kind of build upon the stuff they did that was great.
Yeah, take their great stuff and then let's add to it, right?
Yeah.
Each generation, I believe, is doing that, right?
Trying to get away from fear and shame-based approaches. We don't want our kids doing things because they're scared of us or that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But there can be, and I know I definitely felt this pressure a lot early on. We were learning this because I am more of a combustible person, if I could say. Definitely anger is easy for me to lean into. That was a lot of my kids. A lot of my childhood was like that.
And I think it's important, even personality wise.
Yes. Yeah. It's more, it's easy
so it's like,
I'm a passionate person, man. I'm a passionate person. So to say all that though, I think when I started being like, I want to parent differently, I felt this pressure, especially as I was being trained by people like Dr. Markham, and other people like that who were so good at being peaceful and calm. I thought that this idea that you never get angry, you're always super, calm. You're never getting dysregulated. And I was just spending probably the first year and a half of this journey just beating myself up because I was failing at it on a daily basis. It was not working.
Yeah.
And so I think there is this kind of myth of the calm parent and how we're trying to be perfect and we never get upset and never lose our cool.
And on a side note, I kind of wonder if that's a little the pushback with the gentle parenting.
Sure,
and everyone's like, it's permissive and the kids run the show.
Yeah.
But I almost wonder too if it's that sense of like the pressure you feel to be calm all the time. And, hi, honey, how are you feeling? That's kind of the joke of it, the pushback to it. And
you see that on all the reels. Yeah, it's
and so we want to bring clarity to the fact that that's actually not the goal. And
but we've all had those moments where, and I definitely had a life, I could have just stayed calm, everything would have been better. It's all my fault, look what I just did. And I would read the books, I would watch the reels, and I'd see you doing, I'd see all these peaceful parents who never seem to lose it.
I want to add, I felt that too. I felt a lot of really down on myself if I didn't somehow stay stay calm and I need to move it. And so I think everybody can feel that pressure and that.
Well, and even I felt super fake because there was times I was pretty upset, but I'd be like, I'm just gonna act like I'm calm. Maybe that's what everybody else is doing too. Maybe they're all secretly mad in this moment, but
perfectionism comes in, that guilt, that shame.
And well, then there was a lot of shame. And then I'd be like, I'd be that. And I remember coming back constantly being like, I need to go say I'm sorry again for how I did that. And then I'd be like, I can't be Sarah. I think Sarah's doing it way more often than I am. But even when I try to do it like Sarah, it feels weird. It doesn't feel like me. And I was caught in this kind of dichotomous, like, well, to be me is to be mad, but then to not be me is to be Sarah. Like, no, that there's got to be a third option where I can actually just be more aware of my anger, be more aware of my tendency to get dysregulated and what that looks like. But I can't make perfection the goal or even being calm all the time.
Well, and I think because if you're acting out of that, this is who I ought to be, and there's shame if I'm not that person, then even when you try to move into that space, it's not from this freedom and authenticity. You know, if you're saying, oh, I've got to be like this person and I'm bad or doing it wrong, if I'm this, then anything that you're doing is coming out of this space of judgment instead of the space of freedom and authenticity to go, okay, I can regulate myself and I can be calm. But instead it was coming from a judgment of not being calm. Does that make any sense? That totally, would feel so fake, and you wouldn't have the freedom to be actually calm.
Well, and I think it goes back to even what really effective coaching is. Like when you're coaching somebody, you aren't just telling them what not to do. You're telling them what to do, And so like in my mind, what I had switched from was don't get mad. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. Don't be mad. Don't yell. Don't yell. Don't raise your voice.
For your brain is just not.
Well, then you're still focused on it. And so you're just like, at best, you're screaming inside. And I know every parent listening knows those moments. You're
trying to push that down.
You're trying to push it down and you're feeling bad that you want to scream. And then of course we know you can't hold that in forever. And so then lots of parents, when they're first on the coaching journey, Sarah, lots of them think this is the goal. And I spent some time kind of reframing it for them because they will think it's just to be calm, be calm, be calm, be calm. And then they feel really bad because a couple weeks into that, they blow up and then they're like really mad at it. Look, I failed again, And so I think what we're trying to do in this particular episode is it isn't about don't be mad, don't yell, it is about this is what it looks like to succeed in these moments. And having that vision of what it looks like when my kid is flipping out, when my kid is dysregulated, what does it look like for me as their parent to handle this in a healthy way? What does that look like, right? So if you could kind of describe for you, what does success look like? Like, how did you come to that eventually having a picture of, okay, when the kid is really upset, I want to respond this way or do this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think about how I want to respond. Like I do have the goal of being calm. But I think instead of just living from a place of be calm, it's more like, oh, take care of myself in this moment. It's okay that I might get triggered. I might get dysregulated. I might be upset in this moment and not having a judgment against that. But then how do I care for myself as I'm trying to care for my child? And realizing that that's what's happening. It's okay that my child's having a rough moment. It's okay if I'm having a rough moment in that rough moment. And that's what I want to take care of that versus just this simple be calm, push it down, and it's like looking at it in a more full
what I hear you
picture.
saying, what I wanted to say is, so the goal isn't to be calm for calm's sake.
Right.
Even I like how Dr. Becky Bailey talks about being composed. We hear a lot about being regulated, right?
Mm-hmm.
So calm sometimes to me it's kind of hard to grasp what that is because lots of people can just put on a mask of calm when really they're seething inside.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think being regulated, meaning like when I'm having these big feelings, whether I'm frustrated, angry, furious, whatever it is, it's not that feeling those feelings is bad or you shouldn't be feeling those feelings. It's what are you doing with them?
Yes.
Are you letting those feelings overtake you? And then basically, Sarah, I've used this metaphor before, but are you letting them drive the car and you're just a passenger? Or are you able to, in those moments, move the feeling over and drive the car while being curious about why that's there.
Right.
Well, how come I'm feeling so furious in this moment? Like,
Right.
so having this sense of awareness that this moment isn't about controlling my kid. It isn't about faking calm. It's about getting control of myself.
Right. It's able to acknowledge it and see it there and have compassion for it versus judgment. Like, okay, yeah, this is a tough moment for me. I'm having a hard time. And that's okay that I'm having a hard time. Now what do I do now? How do I move through that, not just stay there, right? Because maybe you can go, oh, I'm really mad.
Yeah.
And then you just stay there. But like then the next steps to come full circle with that.
Well, and I even think what can happen, and I felt this happen for me somewhat, and I know this can happen for guys, for men and women, but I feel like a lot of men I talk to, they can slip into just being emotionless.
Yeah.
In order to not be mad, they just stay super logical, and they think somehow they're being calm by being logical, but then they've kind of left their kid completely alone with their emotion, and the kid doesn't feel like you can understand what they're feeling. And so I think that can be the mistake that a lot, we just move into logic, and then it's like, oh, look, they're being overwhelmed with feelings. Well, I'm just being logical. And I even remember first being married.
That's a really awful feeling.
Yeah.
By the way.
Of what?
Where a person just lives in that logic.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
Someone who's just completely not
disconnected from you.
at all. And I think they feel like they're being successful, but it's like, oh no, you've just shut off half your brain there.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a whole person who has feelings and thoughts. We need that integration. There's a lot on that.
Yeah.
But we need both. And the person you're with in relationship needs both.
Yeah. And so I felt myself shift into that. Like, okay, maybe I can't be calm all the time, but I can just look at this and like almost disconnect myself, disassociate myself from the feeling. But then I notice this wasn't helping. The kids just felt like, you aren't with me in this moment. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
I'd rather be with mom. So I want to kind of define this. If we're talking about, instead of just being a calm parent, but our goal is to be a regulated parent. So a regulated parent, I would say, isn't someone who never feels strong emotion. That's just not going to happen. It's someone who can notice their emotional state and then respond intentionally instead of reacting automatically. So that's a big part of it, is you're going to have the big emotion. That's you being human. And that's your kid, they're going to have their big emotions. That's them being human. The goal isn't for any of us just to act like everything's fine, everything's okay. Which is sometimes what we want our kids to do, just say everything's okay. And sometimes we might even act like everything's fine just to appease somebody in that moment. But it's really to be able to know what to do with that feeling and then to regulate that so it doesn't cause us to keep reacting to the situation.
Yeah. As we can accept ourselves and our feelings in the moment, it'll actually help us accept our child.
Yeah.
And we can actually then from that place move forward together.
Well, and I like this idea that regulation is about flexibility. It's about moving through the emotion and returning to balance. Siegel calls this integration, and you referred to that a minute ago, connecting the emotional brain and the logical brain, bringing the two forces together. And when we integrate, then we can connect and then we can reason. So like for all those dads listening to this or moms who are like, yeah, but at what point can we reason with the kid? Well, first, the reason is important. We want to be able to reason through this, but you first got to connect with the feeling and then move them over to the reasoning part.
And that's where you can get off the rails a little bit when you just stay in the emotion, and you don't I love that moving through. It's like completing the whole circle, right? Yeah. You see people who just get in the mad, the sad, whatever, they tap into that emotion and they don't come all the way through of linking that back to reasoning and being able to look at the moment and make a plan or what, there's all kinds of pieces.
Well, and even I find that interesting because a lot of people who I talk to are actually pretty good at being calm. A lot of times they miss that step. There isn't the talk afterwards about how to do that differently next time. They think if the whole goal is to just be calm, well, we did that. Okay, we succeeded. No, but it was to be calm and then lead to this reasoning, right? Yeah. And even Dr. Bruce Perry is really big in the trauma of kids who've been through trauma. He talks about these 3 steps of you regulate, then you relate or you connect, and then you reason. So in other words, before we can talk with our child and talk them through something, we have to first help both us and them calm that nervous system down so we feel safe again. And then we can actually reason through it. And so, all of us have experienced that in marriage or with friendships. Like, we're not going to be able to resolve anything here or come to come together and create a different ending unless we get that nervous system, in a place where it feels safe. and then now we can, reason together.
Yeah, it's really neat to even watch it going outside of the anger part of it. Just with little kids, I loved this part of, let's say they fall down and get hurt. And, they're just, you think they lost a limb or something, it's so big. And just that when I learn this and I connect with them, oh, that was scary, you're hurt, it's hurting. And once you feel like you've really truly connected with them on that, then you can start to go through the story of what happened. You were running and this happened and you crashed and you fell down and that hurt. And so you're bringing it, the whole story, so they don't keep carrying it. And you see them move through it. And after you do that a few times, you can see them just be able to let it go. And the more you do that with them and all kinds of feelings that they have, sad, scared, hurt, mad, whatever it is, their brain builds this ability to go, okay, this is what I'm feeling. I can accept it. Okay, here's the story, or here's what happened. I can play that out and I can bring this all to completion and move forward. Because otherwise that's where you get people who carry all these things with them in their body and in their memories and things, because they weren't able to complete that full circle of safety and sharing and regulating.
And that's where I think this statement along with that just gives me a lot of peace, Sarah. And I had to come to this understanding that a regulated parent isn't always peaceful. They're not always looking like they're calm. They might take a deep breath. They might sigh. They might pause. They might even raise their voice for a moment out of frustration, but they're aware. They're able to come back. They're able to repair. They don't just start spiraling into the shame cycle of controlling and intimidating, And so basically kind of wrap that idea up is you don't have to avoid emotion. That's not the goal. I mean, so many parents are actually surprised when I say, I would tell my kids, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Like what's happening right now is really annoying me, and I want parents be honest about that, say that, because the kids see it. They see something's affecting you. Just be honest about it.
Yeah, you're actually just naming something they usually are aware of.
Yeah, but
you're not placing the blame on them. You're saying, this is my experience. This is what's happening inside me.
But the difference is you don't stay stuck in that and then use it as a weapon to punish them.
Right.
Or scare them or intimidate them. Right. So I think, a lot of people are saying, and this is an important question. Okay, well, if the goal isn't to be calm per se, 100% of the time, and this idea that it's okay to be upset and be angry and maybe even raise your voice, is there a line? Like, do we need to have a line?
Well, we all know there's a line. So it's like, how do I identify the line?
There you go. Okay.
Right. Yeah. Because I think everyone knows, obviously, safety. We're not there, abuse, anything, obviously, but we all know that line is before that line, right? We know there's like, okay, how do I tell when, because I don't want to damage or hurt my child by being dysregulated. And there's different markers, but chronic, if you're frequently dysregulated and upset, your children will learn to be like, oh, I need to be, I got to safeguard against this, or I don't know when it's going to happen. So, and I don't even say that in a place of judgment. I say that that's a wake up call to that parent to go, you know what, a good few times, whatever, several times a day, I'm getting triggered or I'm upset and I'm struggling with this. That just means you need some care, right? Go get some help. Go, there's different things we won't go into that today, but that's just a signal to you of, oh yeah, okay, because that that frequent chronic stress to your children's nervous system, your nervous system is struggling, and you're going to pass that on to their nervous system as they're trying to always be ready for when you're upset.
Well, and I think a way that I started noticing and kind of the boundary I'd put for myself, Sarah, is I started, one, I had to accept this fact that I can get energized. I can get passionate. I do get angry. My voice will start to raise. And I wanted to stop beating myself up for not being this constant calm parent. So I started thinking, what is that thing for me? And I was thinking, well, it's when I am unable to think clearly and when it's really hard for me to connect anymore. Like I really can't feel this distance. And I mean,
That's a great line.
I really don't want to be around them. I'm like, it's getting there. Right. And that may happen. But it needs to be normal. Needs to be temporary. And if it's going on for a long period of time, right, I would stay stuck in there. Like I would stay, it would go all evening. Sometimes I'd wake up still pissed off about whatever happened the day before. And that is not that's not healthy.
Yeah,
right?
that's too far.
Yes.
If you're looking for a barometer, that's saying, wow, my cortisol levels are too high. My nervous system is severely dysregulated. And it's just a signal that you need to get, there's some things you need to do to care
all
for
stuff.
yourself.
Of course. Yeah. Siegel says this. He says the mind's job is to regulate energy and information. I love that. Your job, your mind's job is to regulate the energy and the information. So it's not about never being stressed, never being upset, but it is about coming back to balance.
Right.
Like you do need to be able to know how to get back to a space where I'm seeing this in a more balanced way.
Right.
If I'm letting it only be one-sided, that I'm the good guy, you're the bad guy, everything you're doing is horrible, and I'm staying stuck in that for hours and hours, days and days, which I've dealt with parents who are doing that. Yep.
It's high, it's a lot. It's not just, I'm irritated. If it's like, well, I get really big and then for hours, that's impacting me and my relationships.
Yeah. So, I mean, if there's moments where you're getting dysregulated and you're raising your voice, I mean, that's not automatically harmful. It's harmful, like you said, when it becomes chronic and when it starts to create fear or shame. And then especially when there's no repair being done. Right. So you got to be able to, if you snap and then come back later and say, hey, I got overwhelmed. That wasn't okay. I love you. Let's try again. Right. When you do that, you're actually teaching your child how to regulate. You're showing them how to come back from disconnection. And that's actually where I had to eventually get to where, Sarah, I started to feel less shame about not being perfect and sometimes blowing up, because I thought, my kids need to sometimes know that happens in life, that we do get upset and we do lose our cool. But it's what do we do with that? It's not that we never do that. It's what do we do with that? Do we let it just sit there and make this kind of toxic?
Right, that's where you're talking about that full circle, right? You learned, okay, I need to come all the way back around with the taking care of myself, right? Integrating my brain, repairing the relationship, that whole thing. Yeah.
Well, and so if we don't do that, Sarah, if we don't understand that needs to be worked on, and we are just staying dysregulated all the time, there is some negative impacts it will have on kids. And when parents stay dysregulated, meaning like they're yelling, they're threatening, punishing, it does, like you were saying, shifts the child's nervous system into this kind of survival mode where they're more on edge and more anxious.
They'll feel responsible to keep you regulated instead of trusting that you can stay regulated. It's, I better be careful. I don't want to say that, or I'll do that. Then you'll be dysregulated and they take responsibility.
Well, I think a lot of listeners, I mean, I know as a kid, Sarah, there's many times where in our home, and I know many of my friends' homes, it was like, hey, when your dad comes home, you're going to be in big trouble for that thing. Or like you knew mom or dad were going to get a call from the school or the friend or somebody who you'd messed up, you'd made a mistake or you'd done something, and you're like, oh, I got to I'm on edge. You're waiting in your room. You hear their footsteps coming and like, oh no, what are they going to do? Dad's going to get really mad right now. Or mom's going to yell at me. And so when that's happening, the kid does go in that fight, flight, or freeze. And typically they're just going to be less honest. They're going to be more kind of just withdrawn. They're definitely not going to be vulnerable and open to you.
They won't learn.
Yeah, and the child might comply in the short term, but they're not developing their own self-regulation. They're learning that fear, to be controlled by fear, and over time that's going to lead to an anxious kid, who withdraws and has explosive reactions of their own.
If we're calm, then our kids feel safe. If we're able to come full circle, repair, regulate, take care of ourselves. So I want to be careful of just using the word, just be calm. But when we can do that, then we help our child's nervous system to stay in a really great place for them to learn.
Yeah. And I also think what's helpful about this idea of realizing we don't want this to be chronic, something that I did too was I wanted to put a cap on how big I wanted to put a boundary. I knew there was a boundary on a scale of 1 to 10. I would never let myself get to a 10. I would never let myself get to a 9. But I did find myself frequently getting to a 7 or 8. And that was higher than what I wanted or what we wanted as a couple. So then I had to be like, well, what does it look like to be at a 5? What does it look like to be at a 6? Do I think that, although maybe not ideal, if I get there, can I still come back and repair? And so there's that piece where if you're dealing with that might be a good way to help you be more aware of what success looks like. But I wanted to add, whenever we have a home where it's not always calm and perfect all the time, it does free the kids to sometimes be messy, meaning like they can get dysregulated. They might raise their voice. And they then will know what to do because they've seen me do it, or they've seen you do it. They've seen us say, hey, I'm really frustrated right now. I need to take a break from this. I need to go take a walk. I need to do something right now. And the more the kids see you do that in imperfect ways, but also with the intention to repair and bring it back around, then they will be skilled to do that. And they'll understand what's going on when their maybe boss does it or a friend does it. And they don't think it's always personal. They just see it as what it is, that this person in this moment's being overwhelmed or dysregulated, and they just need some help to just take a pause. So they could even say to a friend, hey, let's pause for a moment. We're just getting kind of heated. And I think when we come back, we'll be able to repair this.
Yeah, they learn the skill of conflict and resolution and repair and regulation. Yeah, by watching you go through those steps.
And I want to make a statement. Another one that I think really freed me, and I hope frees you, is one of the biggest myths of parenting is that we need to avoid making mistakes. Repair is where real work happens. Like, we've got to accept that we are going to make mistakes. We got to accept that we're going to mess up. At times, we are not going to treat our kids or talk to them the way we would like to be treated. At times, I will be a hypocrite. That used to really bother me, being a parent coach and helping families, that at times I'm not doing what I would tell parents to do. And that I felt like in order to actually be an effective coach, I had to be perfect in what I did at home, But then I realized that was actually causing more problems because I was beating myself up so much. And it wasn't until I realized, like, you know what, I want to get really good at not only lowering the amount of times I'm getting dysregulated, I want to be really good at the repair. I want to get really good at learning about myself, learning about my kids. And I think that's going to be like a really helpful for their personal growth and mine as well.
Yeah.
Brene Brown says this. We love Brene Brown.
That's what I was just thinking. I was thinking of her perfection.
Yeah, maybe sometime we'll get Brene Brown on the podcast. I don't know if that's possible. We'll try. Brene Brown says vulnerability builds trust, not perfection. When you repair after you've yelled or lost it, you're saying our relationship can handle hard moments.
Yeah,
I love that. And that's how kids learn resilience. Is through those moments.
Yeah, I like that. If I'm sure people have got to be aware of her, I don't know.
Yeah.
But just her work on vulnerability, not perfection. Perfection's gonna get you into hard places, dark places, and just the true vulnerability. And I think parents need to sit on that for a moment. Are you being vulnerable? What does that look like? How's that look like in relationship with your child? And as a parent. So we won't get too far into that, maybe another time.
That would be great. Yeah, another podcast. Yeah.
But I think that's really, really valuable. I don't want to just like speed past it. That's really something that we should sit with, and kind of work through.
Yeah. If I can give a quick moment of what success looked like for me, Sarah, and not being perfect, is I remember there was a time, and I may have shared this before on another podcast, but there was a time where I was in the room. Abby was probably like 7 and Brennan was maybe 4. And Abby and I were talking, and it wasn't quite heated, but I definitely was a little frustrated or energized by the conversation. And I did not want to be interrupted. And Brennan came in, and when he did, Abby looked at him and said, she was kind of dysregulated. She said, what are you doing here, Brennan? And Brennan, when at that time, he was like 3 or 4, he just kind of stopped. He could feel the energy, and he was like, what is happening? You both seem so intense. And then Abby said, take that thing out of my room. You brought them. I want it out of here. And I just wanted like Brennan to leave because I wanted to talk to Abby. So I said, did you hear what she said, dude? Take it out of the room. And like, he did not move. He just was total in like freeze mode. And it was really annoying me because I wanted him to leave the room. And so I was like, Brennan, leave the room. And then I felt the anger getting bigger and bigger. And I just stared at him with this intensity. It was like, I really did feel like I was using the force. Like I was like Darth Vader, and I was
shoved him out of the room.
And I was like making him leave the room with and he was just staring at me. And we did that for probably like 5 to 10 seconds. It seemed like a long time. And in that moment, though, I could feel this other voice in my head. What are you doing? How come you're so mad right now? He just came in. He has no idea what's going on. So then I did something I hadn't done before at that time. I just smiled, and I looked at him and I said, that was weird. Wasn't that weird? And then Brandon goes, that was weird. And Abby goes, that was really weird. Like, you were just staring at him. I said, Brandon, I was trying to like force you out of the room with my eyeballs. I was like, and he goes, I know and you just look so mad at me. And I said, how do you feel now? And he said, well, I feel loved now. And I said, man, I'm really sorry for doing that. I was just talking to Abby. You came in. I turned my energy towards you. Hey, I'd like you to go and leave the room so I can finish this talk with Abby. Take that thing out when you go. And he was more than happy to do it. He wasn't opposed to it.
You can see that he probably got in fight, flight, free. His nervous system was like, wait, what did I just walk into? And it sent him into this emergency mode. And for him, he froze in the moment. But
it was really cool because that was a great moment between me, Abby, and Brennan of talking through that, where they saw me losing it. I definitely was not calm, but then they saw my ability to shift it and then come back and reconnect. And then we were almost like laughing about it. Like that was such a weird experience.
What a good little healing. I mean, it's a little snippet, but it's like a full circle that happened kind of quick.
It
doesn't always happen that
No,
quick.
It doesn't. But that was a big moment of success for me, how quickly it didn't just stay there. And I didn't beat myself up. I was actually proud of myself. I was like, that was kind of cool. I almost like lost it. And then I didn't. And it wasn't like, it wasn't me going, why weren't you more calm in that moment? I was like, well, because I was kind of annoyed. He walked in the room. I was trying to talk to Abby. It makes sense, And so I just gave myself that grace that's just kind of me. But I heard this other voice kind of call me back to this better space of connection rather than pushing Brennan away, you know? So like in another example you might have is like a moment where you're getting stressed, you're starting to yell, and something you could do is just take a deep breath and just for a moment and just admit, hey, I'm getting kind of loud. That was my stress talking. It's not your fault. Can we start over? That could be a moment. I love smiling when I do that to kind of like take the energy out. But in that moment, what Siegel would say is you have just transformed what was turning into a rupture, but you turned it into a moment of growth. And those kind of small repairs are what kids need to internalize safety with you. They don't need us to be calm all the time. They need us to show them what to do whenever calm disappears.
Yeah, because that's the hard work, right? It's like, okay, what do I do real quick? We can feel it, and then knowing, okay, let's restart. Let's start do a do-over, and all the things I love those.
Yep.
How much they can use those later in life. It's beautiful.
Well, so let's take a moment, Sarah, and just kind of wrap this up by redefining what success looks like as a parent. It's we started out
sum it up.
Yeah, it's sort of like this myth of like the goal is to be, because I think many parents think that maybe they grew up with yelling in their home and they think like, okay, goal to never yell. The goal is to always be calm. If we do that, then our kids are going to be like fantastic human beings.
Yes, we're not going to do perfection.
Yeah. So it's not about being calm 100% of the time. It's about knowing how to come back, repair, and reconnect. And that's actually the hard work. Yes, real parenting isn't about never being triggered. That's going to happen. It's about how quickly we notice and name it and then take responsibility for it. That's the emotional maturity, the emotional intelligence that we want our kids to have. Because it puts a lot of pressure on them if we're always perfect and never had, like, the fact that we aren't perfect is a part of loving another human.
And they can learn how to do that too, because they're not going to be perfect humans either.
So we want to be able to be calm, but adding connection. When we're losing the calm, we want to make sure we're always moving towards connection. Perfection isn't the goal. Being present is the goal. That's the connection piece. And too often, that's the problem with losing the calm is we disconnect. But even like I was saying, sometimes I was being calm and I still wasn't connected because I was moving into logic. Give yourself grace. We're all allowed to be human. What matters is how we return whenever the conflict happens and we lose it. So next time you lose your cool, try this. Just notice it, name it, repair it. That's you modeling what emotional regulation really looks like. And that's at the core of the art of raising humans. It's not perfectly calm people walking around who never get mad. I mean, there are things to get mad about, but it's about connected, resilient people who know that even when things get messy, love will always bring us back together.
Yeah. And if that's a real struggle for you, getting the support and care that you need to take care of yourself, there's times where life is really, really hard, and that even just what you said there is a difficult thing to do. And that's just a signal that you need more support. Go get the extra support you need.
So I hope this helps you. If you, as a parent, are dealing with dysregulation, you've been struggling with seeing all over social media, if I'm a good parent, I never get mad. I hope this gives you the freedom to give yourself some grace, but also to help you redefine what successful parenting is going to look like for you and your spouse, and how you can raise kids who it's okay for them to be dysregulated, but we want to teach them the skills on how to connect and repair. So really hope this was helpful to you, and please share it, give it to other people who are caught up in that myth, and hopefully this can really dispel that. So thank you for taking the time to listen.
Have a great day.
The Art of Raising Humans podcast should not be considered or used as counseling, but for educational purposes only.